Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the New Horizon, looking out at the stars. He had been traveling through space for 15 years, but the view never got old. Today was different, though. Today they might meet a new alien race. "Captain, we're getting strange readings from the next star system," said Dr. Lisa Barnes. She was the ship's scientist who studied alien life. Her voice sounded excited but worried at the same time. Jake walked over to her station. "What kind of readings?" "Energy signatures I've never seen before. The patterns are too complex to be natural. Someone built whatever is making these signals, and they're very advanced." Commander Alex Turner, the ship's security chief, looked up from his own screen. "How advanced are we talking about?" Lisa shook her head. "Beyond anything we've ever seen. These energy levels should be impossible with any technology we know about." Jake felt his heart beat faster. In all his years exploring space, he had met many alien races. Some were friendly, some were not, but all of them used technology that humans could understand. This sounded different. "Set course for the source of the signals," Jake ordered, "but keep our weapons ready just in case." The New Horizon moved through space toward the unknown signals. It took 3 hours to reach the edge of the star system. What they found there made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Floating in space were ships unlike anything they had ever seen. They looked like they were made of liquid metal that constantly changed shape. Some parts of the ship seemed to fade in and out of reality, as if they existed in another dimension. There were 12 ships in total, each one the size of a small city. "My God," whispered Lisa. "Look at the energy readings now." The numbers on her screen were so high they didn't make sense. These ships were producing more power than Earth's entire civilization used in a year. "Are they scanning us?" asked Alex. "I don't think so," Lisa replied. "They're doing something else. It's like they're communicating with each other without using any technology we can detect." Suddenly, one of the alien ships moved toward them. It didn't use any engines that they could see. It just smoothly glided through space as if the laws of physics didn't apply to it. "Incoming message," announced the communications officer, Lieutenant Dan Cooper. "It's in a language I've never heard, but our computers are trying to translate it." A voice filled the bridge. It sounded ancient and wise, but also sad. The translation appeared on their screens. "Greetings, travelers. We are the Valdrani. We welcome you to this space. Tell us, from which world do you come?" Jake stepped forward. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earthship New Horizon. We come in peace, seeking to learn about other civilizations in the galaxy." There was a long pause. Then the alien voice came back, but this time it sounded different, worried, afraid. "Did you say Earth, the third planet of the Sol system?" "Yes, that's our home world," Jake replied. He didn't understand why the alien sounded so concerned. Another long pause. Jake could hear the aliens talking to each other in their own language. But the computer couldn't translate it fast enough. The words were too complex and full of concepts that humans didn't have words for. Finally, the voice returned. "We are Elder Zefthara of the Valdrani. We must speak with you, but not here. It is not safe." "Not safe for who?" Jake asked. "For everyone," came the reply. The alien ship that had approached them suddenly stopped. Jake could see other Valdrani, ships moving into new positions. They weren't forming an attack pattern. They were running away. "Elder Zefthara, we don't understand. Have we done something wrong?" "You have done nothing wrong, children of Earth. That is precisely the problem. You exist, and you do not know what you are. Lisa grabbed Jake's arm. Captain, they're powering up some kind of drive system. I've never seen energy readings like this. On the main screen, they watched as the Valdrani ships began to fade from normal space. But before they disappeared completely, Elder Zephtara's voice came one more time. Stay away from the old places, children of Terra. Do not seek the sleeping giants. Do not wake what must remain asleep. The cycle must not break, or all will be lost. Wait! Jake shouted. What cycle? What are you talking about? But it was too late. The Valdrani ships vanished completely, leaving behind only empty space and a lot of questions. Alex stared at the empty space where the ships had been. In 20 years of military service, I've never seen anyone run away that fast from a peaceful contact. They weren't running from us, Lisa said quietly. They were running from Earth, from humanity itself. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Record everything that just happened. Every energy reading, every word, every sensor measurement. Send it all back to Earth Command immediately. Already done, Captain, Dan replied. Good. Now start long-range scans of this entire system. If the Valdrani were here, they might have left something behind. For the next 6 hours, the crew of the New Horizon searched the star system. They found traces of Valdrani technology everywhere. Ancient monitoring stations hidden in asteroids. Energy collectors that had been running for centuries. Sensor networks that covered the entire system. Captain, Lisa called out, you need to see this. Jake hurried over to her station. On her screen was a map of the galaxy, marked with thousands of red dots. What am I looking at? These are Valdrani monitoring stations. Our computer found references to them in the data we collected. Captain, they've been watching human space for over 300 years. Every system we've ever explored, every colony we've ever built, they've been watching it all. But we only made first contact with aliens 200 years ago, Alex pointed out. Exactly, Lisa said. They were watching us before we even knew aliens existed. They were watching us before we had spaceships. The question is, why? Jake stared at the map. Hundreds of human worlds, all being watched by an ancient alien race that possessed technology beyond human understanding. A race that ran away the moment they learned where humans came from. Set course for home, he ordered. Maximum speed. Captain? Alex asked. Whatever the Valdrani are afraid of, it's connected to Earth. And if something scares beings that advanced, then we need to find out what it is before it's too late. As the New Horizon jumped into faster-than-light travel, Jake couldn't stop thinking about the Elder's words. Sleeping giants, the cycle, children of Terra who didn't know what they were. What had humanity inherited that made the oldest beings in the galaxy afraid? Admiral Kate Sullivan sat in her office on Earth, reading the report from Captain Morrison's ship for the third time. The words didn't make any more sense now than they did the first time she read them. Ancient aliens running away from humans. Warnings about sleeping giants. References to cycles that must not break. Get me Dr. Richard Hayes, she told her assistant. Tell him to drop whatever he's doing and get here immediately. Dr. Hayes was Earth's best expert on alien languages and ancient civilizations. If anyone could make sense of the Valdrani message, it would be him. While she waited, Kate called an emergency meeting of the Earth Defense Council. Within an hour, the most important military and scientific leaders on Earth were sitting around her conference table. Ladies and gentlemen, Kate began, we have a problem. Yesterday, one of our exploration ships made contact with what appears to be the most advanced alien race we've ever encountered. They took one look at us, panicked, and ran away. General Frank Miller, head of Earth's Space Forces, leaned forward. Ran away? From us? That's what it looks like. They specifically asked where we came from. And when Captain Morrison said Earth, they immediately became afraid and fled. Dr. Hayes arrived and took a seat at the table. Kate handed him a copy of the translated conversation. Richard, I need you to analyze every word of this. Find out what these aliens know about us that we don't know about ourselves. While Dr. Hayes studied the translation, Kate continued the briefing. What's more disturbing is that our computers found evidence that these Valdrani have been watching human space for over 3 centuries. They've been monitoring us since before we had space travel. Why would they do that? Asked Dr. Susan Clark, the head of Earth's Scientific Research Division. That's what we need to find out, Kate replied. 2 days later, more reports started coming in from other human ships across the galaxy. Captain Sam Williams, commanding the research vessel Endeavour, sent an urgent message that made everyone even more worried. Admiral, Sam's voice came through the communication system. We found something you need to see. We discovered a network of monitoring stations positioned around human space. They're all exactly 50 light-years from our nearest colonies. Kate stared at the star map on her wall. 50 light-years? That's very specific. Yes, ma'am. Dr. Amy Foster, our chief scientist, thinks they form a perfect sphere around all human territory, like they're marking some kind of boundary. How old are these stations? At least 300 years, maybe older. They were here before humans ever left Earth. Kate felt a cold chill. Send me all your data immediately. On the other side of the galaxy, Ambassador Tony Miller was having his own strange experiences. Tony's job was to maintain good relationships with all the alien races in the Galactic Confederation. He had contacts with dozens of different species, and he decided to ask them about the Valdrani. The results were troubling. Most aliens had never met the Valdrani, but they all had stories about them. Old legends passed down through generations. They called them the Watchers, or the Ancient Ones. Some species believed the Valdrani were myths, like humans once believed in gods. They're real, Tony reported back to Earth. But no one has seen them in living memory. The oldest species I could find, the Zephyrians, say their great-grandparents might have met them once, maybe 1,000 years ago. Dr. Hayes made his first breakthrough while studying the language fragments Captain Morrison had recorded. The Valdrani language was incredibly complex, with concepts that didn't exist in human thinking, but some phrases kept appearing over and over. Terra's children, he told Admiral Sullivan. They keep calling us Terra's children, not Earth's children. Terra is the old Latin name for Earth. But why would aliens know ancient human languages? What else? They mentioned something called the Awakening Protocol. From the context, it sounds like they're waiting for something to happen, something involving humans. Waiting for what? I don't know yet. The language is too complex. But, Admiral, there's something else. They don't talk about humans like we're a young species. In their language, they classify us as something they call recurrent cycle species. Kate didn't like the sound of that. What does that mean? I'm not sure, but the word recurrent means something that happens again and again, like a pattern that repeats. Meanwhile, Captain Williams and the Endeavour crew were exploring one of the Valdrani monitoring stations they had found. Dr. Foster led a team inside the ancient structure, which was built into a large asteroid. This technology is incredible, she reported to Captain Williams. The station is still active after all these years, running on some kind of power source I can't identify. And Captain, You need to see what they've been monitoring. The team found massive computers filled with data about Earth and human colonies, but the records went back much further than human civilization. The Valdrani had been watching Earth for millions of years, through ice ages, through the time of dinosaurs, through events that happened long before humans existed. Why would they watch an empty planet for so long? Asked Lieutenant Ben Rodriguez, the team's security chief. Maybe it wasn't empty, Dr. Foster replied quietly. Back on Earth, Dr. Hayes made another disturbing discovery. Hidden in the language, patterns were references to something called previous iterations. When he combined this with data from the monitoring station, a terrible picture began to form. "Admiral," he told Kate over a secure communication line, "I think the Valdrani have been watching Earth because they've seen this before. The language suggests that intelligent life has evolved on Earth multiple times throughout history, and each time, something happened to make it disappear." "Disappear how?" "I don't know yet, but the Valdrani seem to think it's going to happen again. Soon." Kate made a decision that would change everything. "I'm authorizing a deep space mission to find the Valdrani homeworld. We need answers, and we need them now." "That could be dangerous," Dr. Hayes warned. "If they're avoiding us for a good reason." "Then we need to know what that reason is," Kate interrupted. "Get me Captain Morrison. Tell him to prepare for the longest journey of his life." Within a week, the New Horizon was equipped with the most advanced technology Earth could provide. Captain Morrison's crew now included Dr. Hayes, along with a new member, Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell, who specialized in making contact with dangerous alien species. As they prepared to leave Earth's solar system, Dr. Foster sent one final report from her investigation of the monitoring station. The message was short, but it made everyone on Earth very nervous. "Admiral, we found the station's central computer core. It contains detailed files on human genetic patterns, brain activity, and something called psychic potential markers. The Valdrani aren't just watching our technology. They're watching our evolution. And according to their projections, humanity is approaching some kind of critical development stage." "What kind of stage?" Kate asked. "The files are in a code we can't break yet, but the Valdrani computer has a countdown timer. It's been running for 300 years, and it shows we have less than 5 years left. 5 years until what? Until something they call the convergence event." Kate stared out her office window at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere out there, an ancient alien race was counting down to something involving humanity, something that scared them enough to run away. The question was, were they counting down to humanity's greatest moment or to its destruction? Captain Sam Williams watched his crew work as the Endeavour moved through the asteroid field. Dr. Amy Foster had detected something unusual hidden among the rocks. It looked like another Valdrani station, but this one was much larger than the monitoring post they had found before. "Captain," Dr. Foster called from her station, "this isn't just a monitoring post. The energy readings suggest it's some kind of archive or library. It's been inactive for a long time, but the main systems are still functional." "How long inactive?" Sam asked. "At least 1,000 years, maybe more. But, Captain, the data storage capacity of this thing is enormous. It could hold the entire history of a civilization." Lieutenant Ben Rodriguez checked his security readings. "No signs of life, no active weapon systems. It looks safe to board." Sam made his decision. "Prepare an away team. Foster, Rodriguez, and Davis will come with me. Full environmental suits and recording equipment. If this thing has been sitting here for 1,000 years, I want to know what the Valdrani thought was important enough to store here." Engineer Kelly Davis ran final checks on their equipment, while Dr. Foster studied the station's external structure. It was built into a massive asteroid, but unlike the monitoring posts, this station had clear entry ports designed for visitors. "That's strange," Foster noted. "The monitoring stations were hidden and sealed. This one has what looks like a welcome center." The team used a shuttle to dock with the ancient station. As they entered through the airlock, emergency lights began to glow, responding to their presence. The corridor they found themselves in was huge, with walls covered in symbols and pictures that told some kind of story. "My God," whispered Dr. Foster. "Look at these images." The pictures showed the history of the galaxy, but not the way humans understood it. They showed civilizations rising and falling, species appearing and disappearing, and through it all, Earth was there. Always Earth, always being watched. "Ben, are you recording this?" Sam asked. "Every second, Captain," the universal translator is trying to work on these symbols, but the language is even more complex than what we've seen before. They moved deeper into the station, following the main corridor. The pictures on the walls changed as they walked, showing more recent galactic history. Sam stopped when he saw images that looked familiar. "Those are human colonies," he said, pointing to a series of pictures showing human settlements on different worlds. "But look at the date markers," Dr. Foster said. "If I'm reading these symbols correctly, these pictures were made 300 years ago, when those colonies were first established. The Valdrani were documenting our expansion in real time." Kelly Davis found the entrance to the main data storage center. The doors were massive, made of some material that seemed to shift between metal and crystal. As they approached, the doors sensed their presence and slowly opened. The room beyond was incredible. It stretched as far as they could see, filled with data storage devices that looked like glowing crystals. At the center of the room was a control console that activated as they entered. "Welcome, children of Terra," a voice said in perfect English. "You have come seeking answers. We have prepared these answers for you, though we hoped this day would never come." Sam stepped forward. "Who are you? Are you Valdrani?" "I am a memory keeper. A fragment of Valdrani consciousness left here to provide information when the time is right. The time is now right because you have found this place, which means the cycle is beginning again." Dr. Foster pulled out her recording equipment. "What cycle? What do you mean by again?" The memory keeper's voice was sad and ancient. "Your species calls your world Earth. We call it Terra. But Terra has had many names throughout its long history, because Terra has been home to many species throughout the ages. Images appeared in the air around them, showing Earth through different time periods. But in some of these images, Earth looked different. Cities that weren't human cities. Beings that weren't human beings." "I don't understand," Sam said. "Are you saying other intelligent species evolved on Earth before humans?" "Not other species, Captain Williams. The same species. Again and again and again. The images changed, showing DNA patterns and genetic charts." Dr. Foster stared at them in shock. "Those are human genetic patterns," she said. "But the dates, these charts are showing human DNA from millions of years ago. Your current civilization is the 7th iteration of your species on Terra," the memory keeper explained. "Each time you develop, you grow, you spread across the galaxy, and each time you reach a point where you must choose your next step in evolution." "What kind of choice?" Kelly asked. "The choice to become something greater than physical beings. Your predecessors called it The convergence. The moment when consciousness transcends matter and joins with the fabric of reality itself. Sam felt a chill run down his spine. What happened to the previous iterations? Where did they go? They attempted the convergence. Each time something went wrong. The process was not controlled, not guided. The psychic energy released during the failed convergences destroyed not just your species, but entire sections of the galaxy. The images around them changed to show scenes of destruction, solar systems being torn apart, space itself bending and breaking, civilizations across the galaxy being wiped out by waves of uncontrolled psychic energy. The last convergence happened 3 million years ago, the Memory Keeper continued. It created the Great Silence, when 2/3 of all intelligent life in the galaxy was destroyed in a single moment. Ben Rodriguez looked at the images of destruction. And you think it's going to happen again? We know it is going to happen again. Your species carries the genetic memory of the convergence. As your civilization develops, the psychic potential within your people grows stronger. We have been monitoring this growth for 3 centuries. Dr. Foster studied the genetic charts floating around them. These psychic potential markers, every human has them. Every human carries the potential, but only when your species reaches a certain level of technological and social development does the potential become active. According to our calculations, humanity will reach that level within 5 years. Sam understood now why the Valdrani had run away from his ship. You're afraid of us. You think we're going to destroy the galaxy, like the previous iterations did. We are not afraid of what you are now, Captain Williams. We are afraid of what you will become, and what will happen if the convergence fails again. What if it doesn't fail? Kelly asked. What if we succeed where the others didn't? The Memory Keeper was quiet for a long moment. If you succeed, your species will become something beyond our understanding. You will transcend physical existence and become part of the cosmic order itself. You will have power over matter, energy, space, and time. And if we fail, if you fail, the psychic explosion will tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. Not just this galaxy, but potentially all of reality. Dr. Foster looked at her readings. The countdown timer we found at the monitoring station. It's counting. Down to this convergence event? Yes. When the timer reaches 0, the psychic potential in your species will reach critical mass. The convergence will begin whether you are ready for it or not. Sam made a decision. We need to take this information back to Earth immediately. Our leaders need to know what we're facing. That information is already prepared for you, the Memory Keeper said. But, Captain, there is something else you must know. The previous convergences were not accidents. They were sabotaged. Sabotaged? By who? By species who feared what your people might become, including, we must admit with great shame, the early Valdrani civilization. We were young then, and we let fear drive us to make terrible choices. The images around them showed ancient Valdrani ships attacking Earth during a previous convergence attempt. They saw the moment when the process went wrong, when controlled transcendence became chaotic destruction. We have spent 3 million years trying to find a way to help your species succeed where the others failed, the Memory Keeper said. But we do not know if it is possible. The choice, when it comes, will be yours alone. Ben Rodriguez downloaded as much data as their systems could hold. The information filled their computers completely, and they still had barely scratched the surface of what the archive contained. There's enough information here to study for decades, Dr. Foster said. But we don't have decades. We have 5. Years. As they prepared to leave the archive, the memory keeper spoke one final time. Tell your leaders that the Valdrani will not interfere this time. The choice must be yours, free from outside influence. But know that we will be watching, and if the convergence begins to fail, we will do whatever we must to protect the galaxy. Even if that means destroying humanity? Sam asked. Even then, Captain Williams, we hope it will not come to that. But we have seen this destruction before. We will not allow it to happen again. The team returned to their ship with the weight of galactic history on their shoulders. As the Endeavor headed back toward Earth, Sam looked out at the stars and wondered what humanity would choose when the time came. Would they risk everything for a chance at transcendence? Or would they find another path, one that didn't threaten the entire galaxy? Either way, the countdown had begun, and in 5 years, one way or another, everything would change. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the briefing room of the New Horizon, looking at the faces of his expanded crew. Dr. Lisa Barnes sat next to Dr. Richard Hayes, both of them studying data from the Valdrani archive. Lieutenant Colonel Sarah Mitchell reviewed tactical information while Commander Alex Turner checked security protocols. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake began, we're about to attempt something that no human has ever done before. We're going to the galactic core to find the Valdrani homeworld. The journey to the center of the galaxy would take 3 months, even with their fastest engines. During that time, Dr. Hayes worked to decode more of the archive data, while Dr. Barnes studied the genetic information about human psychic potential. Captain, Barnes reported after 2 weeks of travel, I've been analyzing the psychic markers the Valdrani identified in human DNA. They're not just random genetic sequences. They appear to be some kind of biological technology built into our genetic code by someone. Built in by who? I don't know, but whoever did it was incredibly advanced. The genetic patterns are too complex and too precise to have evolved naturally. Someone designed them and placed them in the human genome on purpose. Dr. Hayes looked up from his translation work. That matches what I'm finding in the archive files. There are references to something called the architects. From what I can translate, they were the species that lived on Earth before the current cycle of humanity. You mean the 6th iteration? Alex asked. No, something much older. The architects appear to have been the first intelligent species to evolve on Earth, possibly millions of years before the cycle of reincarnations began. And according to these files, they were the ones who designed the genetic modifications that all subsequent Earth species have carried. Sarah Mitchell studied the tactical data. If the architects were that advanced, what happened to them? That's what we need to find out, Jake said. And I think the only way to get those answers is to talk to the Valdrani directly. After 3 months of travel, the New Horizon finally reached the galactic core. What they found there defied all understanding. Valdris Prime, the Valdrani homeworld, existed in a state that seemed impossible according to human physics. The planet appeared to be partially in normal space and partially in some other dimension. Cities floated in the air without any visible support. Structures that hurt to look at directly stretched between dimensions that shouldn't have been able to touch each other. My instruments can't get a proper reading on any of this, Barnes reported. It's like the planet exists in multiple realities at the same time. Incoming message, announced Lieutenant Dan Cooper. Elder Zephtara's voice filled the bridge, but this time she sounded resigned rather than afraid. Welcome to Valdris Prime, Children of Terra. We knew you would come eventually. Dock with the station at coordinates we are transmitting. But know that what you learn here will change everything you believe about your species and your destiny. The docking station was unlike anything they had seen. It seemed to exist in normal space, but Jake could see corridors and rooms that stretched into dimensions his eyes couldn't properly process. Elder Zepthara met them at the airlock. She looked ancient beyond measure, but her eyes held wisdom and sadness accumulated over millions of years. She was tall and graceful, with skin that seemed to shimmer between different colors. "Before we speak of the present," she said, "you must understand the past. You must experience the memories that we have carried for so long." She led them to a chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with soft light. "These are the memory gates. They will show you the true history of your world and your people. But be warned, once you see these memories, you cannot unknow them." Dr. Barnes volunteered to go first. She approached one of the crystals and placed her hand on its surface. Immediately, her consciousness was transported back through time. She saw Earth as it was millions of years ago during the time of the architects. They were beings of incredible beauty and power, with technology that seemed like magic. They had transcended the need for physical bodies long ago, existing as pure consciousness that could take any form they desired. The architects had seeded life throughout the galaxy, nurturing young civilizations and guiding their development. They were beloved by all the species they encountered, seen as wise teachers and gentle guides. But the architects had a vision. They wanted to create a species that could join them in their transcended state, a people who could become partners in their cosmic work. So they chose Earth, their homeworld, as the place to conduct their greatest experiment. They designed a species in their own image, but limited to physical form. Into this species' genetic code, they placed the potential for transcendence, the ability to evolve beyond matter and energy into pure consciousness. Barnes saw the first iteration of humanity rise and fall, reaching the point of convergence but failing because they were not ready. She watched the second iteration, then the third, each one learning a little more but ultimately failing at the crucial moment. When Barnes emerged from the memory, she was crying. "They created us," she whispered. "The architects created humanity as their heirs." Dr. Hayes went next, experiencing memories from a later period. He saw the sixth iteration of humanity, the most successful yet. They had built a galactic civilization that rivaled even the Valdrani. They understood their nature and their destiny, and they were preparing for a controlled convergence. But other species in the galaxy were afraid. They had seen the destruction caused by previous failed convergences, and they didn't want to risk it happening again. Led by the young Valdrani civilization, they formed a secret alliance to stop the sixth iteration from attempting transcendence. Hayes watched in horror as the alliance attacked Earth during the convergence ceremony. The disruption turned what should have been a peaceful transcendence into a catastrophic explosion that wiped out not only the sixth iteration of humanity, but billions of other beings across the galaxy. "You sabotaged them," Hayes said when he emerged from the memory, looking at Elder Zepthara with accusation in his eyes. "Yes," she replied without trying to defend herself. "We were young and afraid. We made a choice that we have regretted for 3 million years." Captain Morrison experienced the final set of memories, seeing the aftermath of the sixth iteration's destruction. He watched as the surviving architects, heartbroken by the failure of their greatest experiment, made a final decision. Rather than try again immediately, they would wait. They would place themselves in a state of suspended existence, hiding in the spaces between dimensions. They would sleep until humanity was ready to try again, until the galaxy had healed enough to support another attempt at convergence. But before they slept, the architects left behind safeguards. Hidden throughout Earth's solar system were devices that would activate when the 7th iteration reached the proper development level. These devices would provide guidance and protection during the convergence, ensuring that this time nothing could go wrong. "The sleeping giants," Morrison said when he emerged from the memory. "The warnings you gave us. You weren't warning us about humanity. You were warning us about architect technology." "Yes," Elder Zepthera confirmed. "The architect's technology is beyond anything we understand. If it activates and the convergence fails again, the destruction will be far worse than before. It could tear apart the fabric of reality itself." Sarah Mitchell stepped forward. "But what if humanity succeeds? What if we achieve the convergence the way the architects intended? Then your species will become something beyond our ability to comprehend," the elder replied. "You will join the architects as gardeners of the galaxy, with power over space, time, matter, and energy. You will become the gods that younger species dream about." Dr. Barnes looked at her companions. "The countdown timer at the monitoring station. How much time do we have left?" 4 years and 7 months, Elder Zepthera said. "When that time expires, the architect technology will activate whether humanity is ready or not. The convergence will begin." Jake Morrison felt the weight of the galaxy's future on his shoulders. "What do you recommend we do?" "That choice is not ours to make," the elder said. "We interfered once before, and the results were catastrophic. This time, humanity must choose its own path. What are our options? You can accept our help to prepare for the convergence, though we admit our knowledge is limited. You can attempt to disable the architect technology, though that risks destroying your species' evolutionary potential forever. Or you can do nothing and hope that natural development will be enough." Commander Turner asked the question they were all thinking. "What will the Valdrani do if humanity chooses to attempt the convergence?" Elder Zepthara's expression was grave. "We will observe. If the convergence begins to fail, if we detect the same energy patterns that preceded the last catastrophe, we will do whatever is necessary to protect the galaxy. Even if that means destroying Earth. Even then, Captain Morrison, we cannot allow another great silence. Too many innocent species would die." Jake looked at his crew, seeing the same mixture of fear and determination in their faces that he felt in his heart. They had come seeking answers, and they had found them. Now, they had to return to... Admiral Kate Sullivan stood before the largest gathering of world leaders in human history. Representatives from every human colony, every major corporation, every military organization, and every scientific institution had come to Earth for this emergency session. The great assembly hall buzzed with nervous conversation as people waited to hear why they had been called together. Captain Morrison and his crew sat in the front row, still tired from their long journey back from the galactic core. Dr. Hayes held a data pad containing information that would change humanity forever. Dr. Barnes nervously checked her research notes one final time. "Ladies and gentlemen," Admiral Sullivan began, "3 months ago, we learned that humanity is not what we believed ourselves to be. Today, you will learn the truth about our species, our destiny, and the choice we must make in the next 4 years." The presentation took 6 hours. Kate showed them the evidence from the Valdrani encounters, the data from the monitoring stations, the memories from the galactic core. She explained about the architects, the previous iterations of humanity, and the approaching convergence. When she finished, the assembly hall was completely silent. 5,000 of humanity's most important leaders sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they had just learned. Finally, Director Chen Wu of the Asian Federation stood up. "Admiral Sullivan, are you telling us that we are genetically programmed to either become gods or destroy the galaxy?" "That's an oversimplification, but essentially correct," Kate replied. President Maria Santos of the American Union raised her hand. "What evidence do we have that this architect technology actually exists in our solar system?" Dr. Barnes stood to answer. "We've begun detecting energy signatures that match Valdrani descriptions of architect technology. There are structures hidden in the asteroid belt, devices buried on Earth's moon, and something very large concealed behind Jupiter that our instruments can't properly identify." General Ivan Petrov of the European Defense Alliance stood up. "What happens if we simply destroy this technology before it can activate?" Dr. Hayes answered this time. "According to the Valdrani data, destroying the architect technology would permanently remove humanity's ability to undergo convergence. We would remain a normal physical species forever, but we would also lose whatever gifts the architects intended to give us. And if we let it activate?" asked Dr. Yuki Tanaka, head of the Pacific Research Consortium. "Then in 4 years and 7 months, the convergence process will begin whether we are ready or not," Kate said. "If we succeed, humanity transcends physical existence and becomes something beyond current understanding. If we fail, the psychic explosion destroys most of the galaxy." The debate that followed lasted for 3 days. Some leaders argued for destroying the architect technology immediately, believing that the risk was too great. Others wanted to prepare for the convergence, arguing that it represented humanity's greatest opportunity for advancement. A third group, led by President Santos, proposed attempting to communicate with the dormant architects before making any decision. "If they're really sleeping somewhere in our solar system," she argued, "shouldn't we try to wake them up and ask for guidance?" Dr. Hayes had been studying the architect language during the return journey. "I believe I've identified the location where the architects are sleeping. The largest concentration of their technology appears to be on Europa, Jupiter's moon. If we're going to attempt contact, that's where we need to go." Admiral Sullivan made the decision to send an advance team to Europa while the global debate continued. Captain Morrison volunteered to lead the mission, taking Dr. Barnes, Dr. Hayes, and a small crew aboard a specially modified ship called the Pioneer. The journey to Europa took 2 weeks. As they approached Jupiter's moon, their instruments detected massive energy readings beneath the ice surface. Something enormous was hidden under Europa's frozen ocean, something that had been waiting there for millions of years. "Captain," Dr. Barnes reported, "I'm reading biosignatures. Faint, but definitely present. There's something alive down there." They landed on Europa's surface and used advanced drilling equipment to create a tunnel through the ice. What they found beneath the frozen ocean shocked them all. Floating in Europa's dark waters was a structure the size of a city, made of materials that shifted between solid matter and pure energy. As their submarine approached the structure, lights began to glow throughout its vast corridors. "Welcome, children of the 7th iteration," a voice spoke directly into their minds. "We have been waiting for you to come to us." The voice belonged to Architect Meridian, one of the few members of the original species who had chosen to remain partially in physical form to guide humanity when the time came. "You are afraid," Meridian observed as the crew entered the underwater city. "That is understandable. Your predecessors were also afraid when they first learned of their destiny." Dr. Hayes found his voice first. "Are you really going to force the convergence on us, whether we want it or not?" "We are not forcing anything," Meridian replied. "The convergence is not something we do to you. It is something you become ready for. The technology we placed in your solar system simply ensures that when you are ready, the process can begin safely." "What if we're never ready?" Dr. Barnes asked. "What if we choose to remain as we are?" Meridian's expression was sad, but understanding. "Then the potential within your genetic code will remain dormant, and you will live normal lives as a physical species. The choice has always been yours to make." Captain Morrison stepped forward. "The Valdrani told us that if we attempt the convergence and fail, it will destroy the galaxy. The Valdrani fear what they do not understand," Meridian said. "The previous failures were not caused by the convergence process itself. They were caused by outside interference that disrupted the natural progression. So if no one interferes this time, we'll succeed?" "Success depends not on outside forces, but on whether humanity is truly ready to transcend physical existence. That readiness cannot be measured by technology or knowledge. It must come from unity of purpose and peace with your own nature." Dr. Hayes studied the architect technology around them. "How will we know if we're ready?" "You will know," Meridian said simply. "When the time comes, if humanity is ready, the desire for transcendence will arise naturally in every human consciousness simultaneously. If you are not ready, that desire will not appear, and the convergence will not begin." "And the countdown?" "Timer? The timer does not count down to forced convergence. It counts down to the moment when the choice becomes available. At that moment, humanity will either feel the call to transcendence, or you will not." Captain Morrison felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. "So we're not being forced into anything. We're just being given an opportunity." "Exactly. But Captain, there is something else you must understand. The Valdrani are still afraid. They still believe that any attempt at convergence will result in galactic destruction. If they detect the energy signatures that indicate convergence has begun, they will attempt to stop it. How? They have spent 3 million years preparing weapons capable of destroying Earth's solar system instantly. They believe this is the only way to prevent another great silence." Dr. Barnes paled. "So even if we're ready, even if the convergence would succeed, the Valdrani might destroy us anyway?" "That is the challenge you face," Meridian said. "Not only must humanity achieve unity and readiness for transcendence, but you must also find a way to convince the Valdrani that you will succeed where others failed." The crew returned to Earth with this new information, adding another layer of complexity to humanity's decision. Not only did they have to choose whether to attempt transcendence, but they had to figure out how to do it without triggering a preemptive strike from the galaxy's most powerful military force. The Global Assembly reconvened to hear Morrison's report. When he finished describing his encounter with Architect Meridian, the debate shifted from whether humanity should attempt convergence to how they could do it safely. "We need to prove to the Valdrani that we're different from the previous iterations," argued Dr. Tanaka. "We need to show them that we can succeed." "But how do we prove something like that?" asked President Santos. Admiral Sullivan had been thinking about this problem during the entire presentation. "We make them partners instead of observers. We invite the Valdrani to help guide the convergence process. The suggestion was controversial. Many leaders didn't trust the Valdrani after learning about their role in destroying the sixth iteration, but others saw it as the only way to prevent a catastrophic misunderstanding. The Valdrani have 3 million years of guilt over what they did to our predecessors, Sullivan continued. Maybe it's time to give them a chance to make amends. Dr. Hayes supported the idea. According to the archive data, the early Valdrani who sabotaged the sixth iteration were driven by fear and inexperience. The current Valdrani leadership has had millions of years to think about their mistakes. The debate continued for weeks, but eventually, a consensus emerged. Humanity would spend the next 4 years preparing for the possibility of convergence. They would study the architect technology, work to achieve the unity of purpose that Meridian said was necessary, and attempt to build a partnership with the Valdrani. 2 years had passed since humanity learned the truth about their nature. The countdown timer now showed less than 2.5 years remaining until the convergence became possible. During this time, the human race had undergone the most dramatic transformation in their history. Dr. Lisa Barnes stood in the new Architect Research Center on Earth's moon, watching as her team studied technology that was older than human civilization. The center had been built around one of the architect devices that had been hidden beneath the lunar surface for millions of years. Any progress on understanding how the transcendence process actually works? Asked Dr. Richard Hayes as he joined her at the observation window. Some, Lisa replied. The architect technology appears to work by amplifying the natural psychic potential in human consciousness, but it's not just about individual transcendence. The process requires humanity to act as a unified entity. Like a collective consciousness? Not exactly. More like a symphony, where every individual consciousness contributes to a larger harmony. If enough humans are ready and willing at the same time, the resonance effect triggers the transformation, Dr. Hayes nodded. That matches what I'm learning from the architect language files. There are concepts in their writing that assume a level of mental unity that humans have never achieved. The past 2 years had been busy ones for humanity. Once the initial shock of learning about their nature had worn off, people across the galaxy had thrown themselves into preparation with incredible dedication. Captain Jake Morrison now commanded the Joint Human-Valdrani Cooperation Fleet, a new organization created to build trust between the two species. It had taken months of careful diplomacy, but Elder Zephythara had finally agreed to limited cooperation. Captain Morrison, came a message from his communications officer. Elder Zephythara is requesting a meeting. She says it's urgent. Jake made his way to the conference room where Elder Zephythara waited via holographic projection from her ship. Even through the hologram, he could see the concern in her ancient eyes. Captain, we have detected troubling energy readings from Earth's solar system, she began without preamble. The architect technology is becoming more active. Our instruments show that it's beginning to scan human population centers. Is that dangerous? Jake asked. We do not know. In the past, this type of scanning preceded the convergence events by approximately 6 months. But your species is not scheduled to have the choice available for another 2 years. Jake felt a chill of worry. Could the technology be malfunctioning? That is what we fear. If the architect systems activate prematurely, before your species is truly ready, the results could be catastrophic. On Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan was dealing with a different but related problem. The Global Unity Project was proceeding well in some areas but facing serious challenges in others. Admiral reported Director James Park of the Global Coordination Council. We've achieved remarkable cooperation in scientific and military matters, but social and cultural unity is proving much more difficult. Kate studied the reports on her desk. What are the main obstacles? Religious differences primarily. Many faith leaders are concerned that transcendence represents a rejection of their beliefs about human nature and divine will. Some are calling it blasphemy, others see it as fulfilling ancient prophecies. And politically? The independence movements on the outer colonies are gaining strength. They argue that transcendence should be a personal choice, not a species-wide decision. Some colonies are threatening to opt out entirely. Kate understood their concerns. The choice to attempt convergence would affect every human being in existence. If even a significant minority refused to participate, it could disrupt the unity that Architect Meridian said was necessary. Meanwhile, on Europa, Dr. Amy Foster worked directly with Architect Meridian to understand the requirements for successful transcendence. The underwater city had become a center of learning for humanity's best scientists and philosophers. Meridian, Dr. Foster asked during one of their sessions, what exactly happens to human consciousness during transcendence? Do we stop being individuals? You become more than individuals while remaining individuals, Meridian replied. Think of it like this. A single note played on a musical instrument is beautiful, but when many notes combine in harmony, they create something greater than any single note could achieve alone. But we maintain our separate identities? Yes. But you also gain access to a shared layer of consciousness that connects all transcended beings. You become part of a cosmic community that includes not just transcended humans, but other species who have achieved this state throughout the galaxy's history. Dr. Foster found this comforting. How many other species have successfully transcended? 17. Across the entire galaxy. It is a rare achievement, which is why the Valdrani fear failure so greatly. The news about increased architect activity spread quickly through human leadership. Emergency meetings were called, and scientists across the solar system reported similar readings. The ancient technology was definitely becoming more active. Captain Morrison met with his mixed crew of humans and Valdrani to discuss the situation. Commander Alex Turner represented human concerns, while Valdrani Subcommander Thelvar spoke for the alien perspective. The energy patterns we're detecting match those recorded before the 6th iteration's failed convergence, Thelvar reported. Our historical data suggests that once this level of activity begins, the species in question has between 6 months and 2 years before the convergence becomes inevitable. Commander Turner looked worried. Inevitable? I thought humanity had a choice. The choice is when to begin the process, Morrison clarified. But according to Architect Meridian, once the genetic potential reaches critical mass, the convergence will happen whether we guide it or not. That's what we fear most, Thelvar said. An unguided convergence has never succeeded. It always results in catastrophic failure. Back on Earth, the religious and philosophical communities were grappling with the implications of transcendence. Pastor William Chen had become one of the leading voices trying to find common ground between different belief systems. We must remember, he told a gathering of religious leaders, that the capacity for transcendence was placed within us by beings of incredible wisdom and compassion. Perhaps this is not a rejection of divine will, but a fulfillment of it. Imam Sarah Abdullah nodded in agreement. The Quran speaks of humans as inheritors of divine knowledge. Could transcendence be the ultimate expression of that inheritance? Rabbi David Goldman was less certain. But what of our responsibility to remain human? To maintain our connection to physical existence and the world we were born into? The debates were passionate, but respectful. Humanity had learned that division would make transcendence impossible. So even those who disagreed worked to find understanding, rather than victory. Dr. Hayes made a breakthrough in his translation of architect texts that changed everyone's understanding of the timeline. I've found references to something called preparation protocols, he announced to the research team. According to these texts, the architect technology is designed to begin preparing humanity 2 years before the choice becomes available. Preparing. Us how? Dr. Barnes asked. By gradually increasing psychic sensitivity across the human population. The scanning that the Valdrani detected isn't a malfunction. It's the beginning of the awakening process. Admiral Sullivan called an emergency meeting of world leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, we're no longer working with a 2-year timeline. According to our best understanding, the preparation phase has already begun. We have at most 18 months to achieve the level of unity and readiness necessary for successful transcendence. The news sparked a new urgency in human preparation efforts. Global cooperation projects were accelerated, philosophical and religious discussions were intensified, and scientific research into the transcendence process was given unlimited resources. But even as humanity worked desperately to prepare, signs of the coming change were becoming apparent to ordinary people. Across the galaxy, humans began reporting strange dreams, moments of unusual clarity, and feelings of connection to other people they had never experienced before. Children seemed particularly sensitive to the changes. Teachers reported that students were displaying unusual empathy and understanding, often knowing what their classmates were thinking or feeling without being told. Dr. Barnes studied these reports with growing excitement. This is exactly what the architect texts describe, she told her research team. The genetic potential isn't just activating in certain individuals, it's awakening across the entire human population simultaneously. But are we ready for it? Dr. Hayes asked. Do we have the unity that Meridian says is necessary? We're getting there, Barnes replied. But we need more time. Time, however, was the one thing humanity couldn't control. The ancient genetic programming was following its own schedule, one that had been set millions of years ago by beings who could never have imagined the challenges their heirs would face. As reports of psychic awakening continued to pour in from across human space, the Valdrani grew increasingly nervous. Their ships took up positions around the solar system, ready to intervene if the convergence began to go wrong. 6 months had passed since the architect technology began its preparation phase. The countdown timer now showed 14 months remaining, but everyone knew that the real deadline was much closer. Across human space, the psychic awakening was accelerating at an unprecedented rate. Dr. Lisa Barnes stood in the observation deck of the Luna Research Station, watching Earth through the transparent dome above her. Even from this distance, she could see the change. The planet seemed to glow with a faint energy that hadn't been there before, visible only to those who knew what to look for. Dr. Barnes, called her assistant, Dr. Michael Ross. We're getting reports from the surface. The psychic sensitivity levels are off the charts. Some people are experiencing full telepathic contact with family members on other continents. Lisa nodded grimly. The process is accelerating faster than the architect models predicted. At this rate, we'll reach critical mass in 3 months, not 14. On Earth, ordinary people were dealing with extraordinary changes in their daily lives. Maria Santos, a teacher in Buenos Aires, found that she could sense her students' emotions. so clearly that she could tell when they were confused before they raised their hands to ask questions. At first, it had been frightening. The sudden ability to feel other people's thoughts and feelings was overwhelming. But as the weeks passed, Maria and millions of others like her began to adapt. The psychic connections didn't feel invasive or foreign. They felt natural, like a sense they had always possessed but never used. "Mom," said her 8-year-old daughter Elena one morning at breakfast, "I can hear Tommy next door thinking about his math homework. Should I help him?" Maria smiled despite her concerns. "What do you think we should do, sweetheart?" "I think we should help people when they need it," Elena replied. "The voices in my head say that's what the big change is about. Helping each other." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening in millions of homes. Children seemed to understand the changes better than adults, accepting their new abilities as naturally as they had once learned to walk or talk. Captain Jake Morrison was experiencing the changes firsthand aboard his ship. The mixed human Valdrani crew had become an unexpected testing ground for cross-species psychic contact. "Captain," reported Dr. Barnes via communication link, "you need to know that some humans are beginning to establish psychic contact with Valdrani crew members. This wasn't supposed to be possible." Jake looked across the bridge at Sub-Commander Thelvar, who was studying her instruments with a puzzled expression. "Thelvar, are you experiencing anything unusual?" "Yes, Captain Morrison," she replied. "I am receiving impressions from your human crew members. Emotions, stray thoughts, moments of memory. It is unprecedented." Commander Alex Turner spoke up from his station. "I've been getting the same thing from Thelvar and the other Valdrani. It's like we're all connected somehow." On Valdris Prime, Elder Zefthara was meeting with the Valdrani High Council in emergency session. The psychic awakening of humanity was triggering responses in other species throughout the galaxy, something that had never happened during previous convergence events. "The humans are different," reported Council member Vextar, who had been monitoring the situation. "Their psychic awakening is not contained to their own species. It's creating resonance patterns that affect other sentient beings." "What kind of effects?" asked Elder Zefthara. "Increased empathy, enhanced communication abilities, deeper understanding between species. The barriers that normally separate different forms of consciousness are becoming permeable." Another council member, Ancient Morseth, spoke slowly. "This matches certain prophecies in the oldest architect texts, prophecies we thought were metaphorical. They spoke of a species that would not just transcend individually, but would create a bridge that allows all consciousness to evolve together. Back on Earth, the global unity that had seemed so difficult to achieve was happening naturally as a result of the psychic awakening. Religious leaders who had opposed each other for centuries found themselves sharing moments of spiritual connection that transcended doctrinal differences. Pastor William Chen stood with Imam Sarah Abdullah and Rabbi David Goldman on the steps of the United Nations building, their hands joined as they led a prayer for humanity's future. "I can feel it," whispered Sarah. "The divine presence that we each worship in our own way. It's the same source, speaking to all of us." "The barriers between us were always illusions," David added. "We're all part of the same cosmic consciousness, just experiencing it through different traditions." William nodded. "Perhaps the convergence isn't about leaving our humanity behind. Perhaps it's about finally understanding what humanity really means." The political unity that had seemed impossible was also emerging organically. The independence movements on the outer colonies had largely disbanded as colonists found themselves psychically connected to their fellow humans across vast distances of space. Admiral Kate Sullivan received reports that amazed her. "Ma'am," said her aide, "we're getting messages from colony leaders throughout human space. They're withdrawing their petitions for independence and requesting to participate fully in the convergence preparation." "What changed their minds?" "The psychic connections, apparently. When you can feel the thoughts and emotions of people on Earth, it's hard to see them as separate from yourself. But not everyone was adapting well to the changes." Dr. Amy Foster, working with architect Meridian on Europa, reported concerning developments. Meridian: "Some humans are rejecting the psychic awakening," she said. "They're finding ways to block or suppress their developing abilities." Meridian's expression showed deep concern. "That is problematic. The convergence requires voluntary participation from the vast majority of the species. If significant numbers of humans reject the process, it could cause the kind of instability that led to previous failures. How many need to participate for success?" Historical data suggests that at least 90% of the species must willingly embrace transcendence. Below that threshold, the psychic resonance becomes chaotic rather than harmonious. Dr. Foster felt her heart sink. "What percentage of humans are currently rejecting the awakening?" "Based on the psychic readings we're detecting, approximately 15% of your species is actively resisting the process." On Earth, the resistance movement was being led by Dr. Marcus Webb, a neurobiologist who argued that the psychic changes represented a loss of individual identity rather than evolution. "We're losing what makes us human," he argued at rallies attended by thousands of concerned people. "These aliens want to turn us into some kind of collective consciousness. But humanity's strength has always come from our individuality, our independence of thought." Dr. Webb had developed techniques for suppressing psychic sensitivity using a combination of meditation, pharmaceutical interventions, and technological shielding. His followers called themselves the True Human Alliance, and their numbers were growing. "We have the right to remain as we are," Dr. Webb declared. "No ancient aliens should have the power to force evolution on unwilling participants." The resistance movement created a crisis for humanity's leadership. They couldn't force people to participate in the convergence, but without sufficient participation, the entire process could fail catastrophically. Dr. Barnes worked frantically to find a solution. "Meridian," she asked during an emergency consultation, "what happened in previous iterations when part of the population resisted the convergence?" "In some cases, the resistant individuals were simply left behind when the rest of the species transcended," Meridian replied. "But in the 6th iteration, the resistance created psychic interference that contributed to the catastrophic failure. Is there a way to modify the process to account for resistant individuals?" "Perhaps, but it would require changes to the architect technology that we have never attempted before. The risk of making the process even more unstable is significant." Meanwhile, the Valdrani were preparing for the worst. Elder Zepthara had positioned weapons capable of destroying Earth's entire solar system at strategic points around human space. If the convergence began to fail, she would have less than an hour to make the decision that would save the galaxy by destroying humanity. "I pray to the cosmic consciousness that we will not need to use these weapons," she confided to Captain Morrison during one of their regular communications. "But we cannot allow another great silence to devastate the galaxy." Jake understood her position, even though it terrified him. "Elder Zepthara, what signs will you be watching for? How will..." You know if the convergence is failing? Uncontrolled psychic energy release, fractures in space-time, and most importantly, the resonance pattern becoming chaotic rather than harmonious. If we detect these signatures, we will have no choice but to act. With 3 months remaining, until the predicted critical mass, humanity faced its greatest challenge yet. They had achieved remarkable unity among those who embraced the awakening, but the growing resistance movement threatened to destabilize the entire process. Dr. Barnes proposed a desperate solution. We need to convince the resistance members that they're not losing their humanity by participating in the convergence. We need to show them that transcendence enhances individuality rather than destroying it. The day had finally arrived. 3 years of preparation, debate, fear, and hope had led to this moment. Across human space, billions of people felt the same sensation simultaneously, a gentle calling that seemed to come from deep within their genetic memory, inviting them to take the next step in human evolution. Admiral Kate Sullivan stood in the command center on Earth, watching status reports stream in from every human colony and ship in the galaxy. The psychic awakening had reached critical mass exactly as the architect technology had predicted. "Admiral," reported Dr. Lisa Barnes from the Luna Research Station, "we're detecting the resonance pattern that architect Meridian described. The convergence is beginning." Kate felt the calling herself, a warm sensation that filled her mind with possibilities she had never imagined. But she also felt the weight of responsibility. As Earth's military leader, she needed to coordinate humanity's response to this cosmic moment. "Status report on the resistance movement," she requested. "Dr. Webb's True Human Alliance has gathered in shielded facilities around the globe," came the reply. "Current estimates show about 12% of humanity is actively resisting the process." Kate's heart sank. Architect Meridian had said they needed 90% participation for stable transcendence. With 12% resistance, they were dangerously close to the failure threshold. On Europa, Dr. Amy Foster stood with Architect Meridian in the underwater city. The ancient being's form was becoming more radiant as the convergence energy built throughout the solar system. "Meridian," Dr. Foster asked, "can the process succeed with this level of resistance?" "It will be difficult," Meridian replied, his voice resonating with harmonics that seemed to come from multiple dimensions. "But there is something different about this iteration of humanity. Your psychic awakening has created connections not just within your species, but with other forms of consciousness. This may provide the stability we need." At that moment, something unprecedented happened. The psychic field generated by humanity's awakening began resonating with the Valdrani ships positioned around the solar system. Elder Zefthera, monitoring the energy patterns from her flagship, felt her consciousness touched by human thoughts and emotions. "By the cosmic void," she whispered. "They're inviting us to join them." Across the Valdrani fleet, crew members experienced the same phenomenon. The humans weren't just transcending themselves. They were creating a field that allowed other species to evolve alongside them. On Valdris Prime, the High Council felt the resonance across interstellar distances. Ancient Morzeth spoke with wonder in her voice. The prophecies were true. This species doesn't just transcend. They create a bridge that allows all consciousness to ascend together. Captain Jake Morrison felt the calling while aboard his ship with its mixed human Valdrani crew. The sensation was unlike anything he had ever experienced. It wasn't a loss of individual identity, but an expansion of it. He could feel his consciousness, stretching to encompass not just his own thoughts and memories, but connections to every human in existence. "Captain," called Subcommander Thelvar, "my people are reporting that they can feel the convergence invitation as well. This has never happened before." Commander Alex Turner, his eyes glowing with new understanding, turned to his Valdrani colleague. Maybe this is how it was supposed to work all along. Maybe the previous iterations failed because they tried to transcend alone. Back on Earth, Dr. Marcus Webb felt the cosmic calling despite his resistance efforts. In the shielded facility where he and his followers had gathered, the psychic invitation penetrated even their most advanced defenses. "Dr. Webb," said one of his supporters, "I can feel it too. It's not what we thought it would be. It's not trying to take away our humanity. It's trying to show us what humanity really means." Webb struggled with the sensation. His rational mind told him to resist, but the invitation felt so natural, so right, that fighting it was like trying to stop his own heartbeat. "Sir," said another of his followers, "maybe we were wrong. Maybe this isn't about losing ourselves. Maybe it's about finding ourselves." The moment of choice was approaching. Across human space, people felt the convergence energy building to a crescendo. Soon, they would need to make the collective decision that would determine not just humanity's future, but the future of consciousness throughout the galaxy. Dr. Barnes watched the energy readings from her lunar station. "Admiral, the convergence field is approaching the transition threshold. In approximately 10 minutes, humanity will either transcend or the process will fail catastrophically." "What about the Valdrani weapons?" Kate asked. "They're powered down," came the surprising reply. "Elder Zepthera has ordered her fleet to join the convergence rather than oppose it." Elder Zepthera stood on the bridge of her flagship, feeling the human invitation resonating through her ancient consciousness. For 3 million years, her people had carried the guilt of destroying the 6th iteration. Now humanity was offering them a chance at redemption. "All ships, stand down weapons," she ordered. "If humanity fails, we will face the consequences together. If they succeed, we will ascend together." Architect Meridian felt the cosmic moment approaching. From Europa, he sent a final message to all of humanity. "Children of Terra, the choice is before you. You can remain as you are, bound by physical form but free to live your lives in peace. Or you can take the step your genetic heritage has prepared you for, joining the cosmic community of transcended consciousness. But know this," Meridian continued, "whatever you choose, choose it together. Unity of purpose is the key to success. Division leads only to destruction." Across the galaxy, humans felt the invitation growing stronger. In schools and offices, on ships and colonies, in resistance facilities and research stations, people closed their eyes and prepared to make the most important decision in their species' history. Maria Santos, the teacher in Buenos Aires, held her daughter Elena's hand as they felt the cosmic calling together. "Are you ready, sweetheart?" she asked. "I think so, Mama," Elena replied. "The voices in my head say it's going to be beautiful." Dr. Webb, in his shielded facility, finally stopped fighting the invitation. "Maybe," he said to his followers, "maybe we were afraid of the wrong thing. Maybe the real danger isn't losing our humanity. Maybe it's refusing to become fully human." One by one, his supporters nodded in agreement. The resistance movement dissolved as its members chose to join their species in transcendence. The moment arrived. Across human space, billions of consciousness made the same choice simultaneously. They opened their hearts and minds to the cosmic invitation, ready to discover what lay beyond physical existence. The convergence energy reached its peak. Space itself seemed to sing as human consciousness began to transcend the boundaries of individual identity while somehow becoming more individual than ever before. Dr. Barnes, watching from Luna, saw her instruments record energy patterns beyond anything they had been designed to measure. "Admiral, it's working. The resonance is stable. The transcendence is succeeding." Kate felt her own consciousness beginning to expand. She could sense every human in existence, each one a unique note in a cosmic symphony that was greater than the sum of its parts. But the miracle didn't stop with humanity. The transcendence field that humans had created was indeed a bridge, allowing other forms of consciousness to evolve alongside them. The Valdrani felt their ancient minds touching, realms of existence they had never imagined. Across the galaxy, other species felt the invitation and began their own journey toward transcendence. Architect Meridian's joy resonated through dimensions as he watched his greatest creation finally fulfill its purpose. "Welcome," he said to the newly transcended humans, "to the cosmic community. You have not just saved yourselves. You have opened the door for all consciousness to evolve together." Elder Zeph Thara, her consciousness now spanning both her Valdrani heritage and the new realm of transcended existence, sent a message to the cosmic community. "We who once acted in fear and destroyed what we should have nurtured, we ask forgiveness and offer our service to the great work of consciousness evolution." The response came from millions of transcended minds speaking as one. "There is nothing to forgive. There is only the eternal work of helping all beings discover their true nature." Captain Morrison, his consciousness now capable of perceiving realities beyond physical space-time, understood at last what the architects had been trying to achieve. They hadn't wanted to create gods or destroyers. They had wanted to create bridges, beings who could help all consciousness evolve together toward greater understanding and unity. As the immediate effects of the convergence settled, the newly transcended humans began to understand their role in the cosmic order. They were not separate from their physical bodies or their material universe. Instead, they existed in both realms simultaneously, capable of touching the infinite while remaining grounded in the finite. Dr. Foster, now able to communicate directly with architect consciousness across space and time, asked the question that had driven humanity's entire journey: what happens now? The answer came not from Meridian alone, but from the collective voice of all transcended consciousness. Now the real work begins. Now we help others find their path to transcendence. Now we ensure that no species ever again faces this choice alone or in fear. Across the galaxy, T.